Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking on a scenario that is, well, it's a mix of the mundane and the absolutely terrifying.
I think we all know the feeling. That sudden sinking realization that you are completely, utterly lost in a city you don't know.
Exactly. The streets all look the same, nothing is familiar, and this is the real kicker for our deep dive today. Your phone is dead.
That dead phone is everything. It's the key that unlocks this whole scenario.
It really is. It takes away our modern crutch and forces us back to something, well, something much older, human interaction.
Yeah. And that's what we have in our source material. We have this dialogue, this little script between a lost tourist and a local person. And we're going to treat it almost like an engineering schematic.
A blueprint, right. A blueprint for a very high stakes, very low information kind of interaction.
Precisely. So this deep dive is all about pulling out the crucial pieces, the social rules, the linguistic precision, the little cognitive tricks that you need to get good directions when you just can't afford to get it wrong.
We're not just looking at vocabulary here. We're looking at the structure. Why say this before you say that?
Yeah. Why measure distance in minutes, not in, miles or kilometers?
Right. And why are there so many layers of redundancy? It's all about finding a clear path to knowledge when, your brain is overloaded with anxiety.
Our goal here is to really understand how this simple conversation just cuts through all the noise, the intrusion, the urgency, the potential for, language barriers.
So let's start at the very beginning, the hardest part, I think.
Getting someone to actually stop and listen to you.
Yes. You're standing there, you're anxious, you're on a busy street corner with this useless piece of glass in your hand. How do you even start that conversation without someone just waving you off?
That takes us right into part one, what we're calling the social contract, how you initiate the ask. And the setting here is so important. A busy street corner.
Okay, so a busy street corner. When we say that, we're talking about a really high-pressure environment, right?
Oh, absolutely. People are moving. They have a destination. They're in their own heads.
So the whole setting just screams urgency and intrusion. Why does that mean you have to start with this sort of ultra-polite, very structured approach?
Well, you're basically asking someone to stop what they're doing and divert all their mental energy to your problem. There's a kind of cognitive cost to that interruption.
A cognitive cost. I like that.
Yeah, and if that cost feels too high, they're going to keep walking. So the tourist opening is, it's almost perfectly designed to lower that cost as much as possible.
And it starts with the most classic phrase imaginable. Excuse me.
It is the classic attention getter, yes. But it's more than that. It's a signal.
A signal for what?
It's a request for permission to interrupt. It's not aggressive. It's not demanding. It's like a soft verbal tap on the shoulder.
And it probably only buys you about 1 second of their attention.
Exactly 1 second, which is why it has to be followed immediately by that second layer of politeness.
Sorry to bother you. And that's where it moves from just getting attention to actually managing the social dynamic of the moment.
It's so crucial. That phrase acknowledges the imposition. You're basically saying, I get it, you're busy, I know I'm an inconvenience, and I value your time.
It establishes good faith right away.
It does. By showing that empathy, the tourist makes the local person much more willing to actually invest their time in giving a good, detailed answer.
That's really interesting. It's like a preemptive apology. But let me push back on that a little bit. If you're really lost, really anxious, and you approach someone with just so much deference, is there a risk of overdoing it?
Oh, that's a great question.
Does being too apologetic maybe water down the urgency of your actual problem?
It's a balancing act, for sure.
Yeah.
You need politeness, but you also need clarity. The genius of this specific sequence, sorry to bother you, is how quick it is.
It's not a long, rambling story.
Not at all. It signals respect, but it doesn't get in the way of the need itself, which comes right after.
Yeah.
It's the perfect balance. Respectful, but efficient.
Okay, so you've managed to stalk someone. You've diffused any potential annoyance. You have their attention. But you don't just jump into the directions, do you?
No. There's one more really strategic gatekeeper question you have to ask first.
Right. This brings us to checking for common ground.
Exactly. The language barrier. The tourist asks, do you speak English?
Why is that simple question just so powerful in this context?
Because it's all about efficiency. It's about feasibility. Can you imagine
Oh, I can.
launching into this whole complicated request for directions, getting a bunch of nods, and then 2 minutes later you realize The person didn't understand a single word you said.
It would be awful. You'd have wasted both of your time, your stress level would go through the roof, and all that good faith you just built up would be gone.
Sounds like professional checking their tools before they start a job. You have to make sure the medium of communication actually works.
Right, and the local person's response is just lovely. Yes, I do. How can I help you?
You can just feel the shift in tone right there.
You really can.
They go from being someone who was just interrupted on the street to someone who is now an active collaborator. They've accepted the social contract you offer.
The barrier is down. The interruption has turned into a commitment to help.
And that successful start is the foundation for everything that follows. If that first part had been shaky, if the local person felt annoyed or rushed or just couldn't understand, the directions they gave would probably have been short, confusing, and ultimately useless.
Okay, so the local is on board, they're listening, they're ready to help. Now the tourist has to do something really important.
They have to turn that vague, anxious feeling of I'm lost into a concrete, actionable goal.
Which moves us right into part 2, defining that goal and assessing if it's even feasible.
So this next bit needs to be really, really clear. The local person is sort of mentally pulling up their internal map of the city.
And they don't have all day, so how does the tourist state their objective without wasting any time?
Well, first, they are incredibly specific. They say, I am looking for the central library.
Right, not a library, not a cool place with books. The central library.
That specificity is everything.
Yeah.
It immediately lets the local person lock onto a single, known point on their cognitive map. There's no ambiguity.
And right after stating the goal, the tourist does something else really smart. They admit vulnerability.
Yes. I think I am lost.
Why is that so effective? It seems obvious, but what is it doing psychologically?
It's a masterclass in managing expectations.
How so?
By saying I am lost, the tourist is sending a clear signal. I need simple ground-level instructions. Don't assume I know anything.
Don't use street names I've never heard. Don't tell me to head toward the river because I have no idea which way the river is.
Exactly that. Please use big, obvious landmarks, clear turns, and assume I have zero local knowledge. It basically guarantees you're going to get a much more patient, much more detailed response.
And it also triggers a very human response in the local person, doesn't it?
It does. It triggers that instinct to reassure, which is so important for managing the tourist's anxiety.
Okay, let's break down that reassurance. The local person says, oh, the central library. Do not worry, it is quite close. Why is that statement about proximity? It's quite close. So important to say before you give any actual directions.
It has a huge psychological function. I mean, being lost, especially without your phone, it puts you in a mild state of panic.
It's a sort of fight or flight mode.
It really is.
Yeah.
Your cortisol levels are up, and your higher cognitive functions, your ability to listen carefully, to process complex spatial information, to hold things in short-term memory, all of that gets worse.
So the reassurance, don't worry, it's close, literally calms the brain down.
It brings the tourist back to a functional baseline. You can hear it in their response.
Yeah.
That is a relief. A calm mind is a mind that can actually absorb the instructions that are about to come.
That's fascinating. If the local had just jumped straight in with, okay, walk 3 blocks, the tourist's stressed brain probably would have forgotten the first step by the time they heard the second.
You have to lower the stress before you deliver the data. It's that simple.
Okay, so the goal is set, the tourist is calm. Now we get to the big logistical question. Is it within walking distance?
Yes. This is where we really get to dig into this idea of walking distance. Our source even gives us a definition. Walking distance means it is close enough to walk.
But it's more than that, isn't it? I mean, why is talking about travel in terms of human effort and time so much better than using a precise distance, like, say, it's half a mile away?
Because our experience of the world is based on time and effort, not abstract measurements. If someone tells me a place is 800 liters away, that's just a number. It doesn't mean much.
Right.
But if they say it's about 10 minutes on foot, I can feel that. I know what 10 minutes of walking feels like. That's a tangible, real-world measure of my immediate future.
And that 10 minutes has so many other variables left into it, doesn't it?
It has everything baked in. It accounts for your walking pace. It accounts for the terrain. Are there hills? It accounts for interruptions. Are there a lot of traffic lights or big crowds?
A kilometer on a flat, wide street is a completely different experience from a kilometer on a winding cobblestone alley.
Exactly. The distance is the same, but the time and the effort are totally different. A temporal estimate, a time estimate, is a dynamic. It contains all that context.
And the local person's answer is just perfect in its specificity. Yes, it is about 10 minutes on foot.
10 minutes, that's sort of the gold standard for walking directions, isn't it?
It seems like it. It sets a clear deadline in your mind. You know the effort is manageable. It's finite.
Hmm. Then had said 25 minutes, you might start asking other questions.
Right. Is there a bus? Should I just grab a cab? But 10 minutes is universally understood. It's a low effort commitment.
And it also manages expectations beautifully. If you get there in 8 minutes, you feel great. If it takes you 12, it still feels like the estimate was pretty much spot on.
Whereas if they'd said 800 meters
Yeah.
and it took you 15 minutes because the path was crowded and twisty, you might start to feel like the directions were bad.
Absolutely. Time is forgiving. Distance is brutally objective.
Okay, so we've gone from the initial social contact through defining the goal, and we've confirmed the logistics. The tourist is calm, the journey seems easy. Now for the hard part.
Receiving and processing the actual step-by-step instructions.
So when you're giving good directions, the structure has to start with the simplest, most reliable instruction you can give.
Linear movement. You have to start there.
The local person begins. Go straight ahead on this street for 2 blocks. Let's analyze that. Why is it so important that the very first instruction is just to keep going the way you're already facing?
Because the tourist is starting from a state of disorientation. Their confidence is low. If the first instruction is a complicated turn, they might immediately start to second-guess themselves. Wait, am I facing the right way to begin with?
So go straight ahead is an order to trust your current orientation. It kills that lateral doubt.
It does. It stops you from getting distracted by a little side street or an interesting alley right at the start. Just keep going.
And then we get the unit of measurement, 2 blocks. This feels very specific to a certain kind of city, like one with a grid system. Why are blocks so effective for this kind of quick direction giving?
In many cities, blocks are like cognitive milestones. They're tangible, you can see them, you can count them, they're defined by intersections.
Unlike a vague distance.
Right. If someone says, go straight for about 300 yards, your brain has to constantly estimate, is this 300 yards yet? How about now?
It's a lot of work.
A lot of cognitive load. But counting 1 intersection, 2 intersections is simple. It's a visual confirmation task. And by keeping the number low, just 2, it's very easy to hold in your short-term memory, even when you're stressed.
This is also where the tourist plays a really active role in making sure the information is correct. They do this little confirmation loop.
Yes. They say, okay, go straight for 2 blocks.
Why is that repetition so vital?
It's a critical step. Psychologists call it encoding and consolidation. When the tourist repeats the instruction, they are actively encoding it into their memory. And when the local person hears it and implicitly confirms it by not correcting them, that memory gets consolidated. It gets locked in.
It's a double check that massively reduces the chance of making a mistake down the road.
The whole collaboration is just humming along perfectly.
Okay, so they've gone straight for 2 blocks. Now it's time for the first big move.
The key maneuver. Turning at a piece of infrastructure.
The instruction is, then turn left at the traffic lights. So we've got an action turn left paired with a really solid anchor point.
At the traffic lights. Let's spend a second on traffic lights. I mean, they're designed for cars, but they are incredibly valuable navigational aids for people on foot. Why?
Well, they're hard to miss, for one. They're big, they're lit up.
And they represent a point of high certainty. A traffic light almost always means you're at a major intersection, a place where the city's structure naturally supports a change of direction.
It's a much more reliable marker than, say, a specific street sign that could be hidden by a tree, or a little cafe that might have gone out of business.
Exactly. Traffic lights are universal, they are fixed, and they are functional. And pairing that solid anchor with the absolute command, turn left.
No ambiguity there.
None. You can't say, sort of head in that direction. That just invites confusion. For someone who's already lost, you need precision. Specific action, specific marker.
But even something as reliable as a traffic light might not be enough on its own.
Right. And that's why the local person adds another layer, a layer of visual redundancy.
This takes us into the idea of landmark triangulation.
Yes. We're moving beyond just infrastructure and into things you can actually see and recognize, which brings us to part 4.
Okay, so after telling the tourist to turn left at the traffic lights, the local person immediately follows up with this landmark reinforcement.
You will see a big supermarket on the corner.
This is what you call the cognitive safety net.
It is. The loco is backing up the technical reference, the traffic lights, with a big, bold commercial visual reference, the supermarket. Why is having both so effective?
I mean, for starters, what if the traffic lights are broken or maybe they're blocked from view by a big truck that's turning?
Exactly. But a big supermarket is almost impossible to miss. That visual cue is emotionally reassuring in a way that a piece of infrastructure just isn't.
A supermarket has branding, bright colors, people going in and out. It's a hive of activity.
It is. And if the tourist sees that specific thing, that supermarket, all their anxiety just melts away again. They know with 100% certainty that they're in the right spot.
And you can actually see this preference for the visual cue in the tourist's response, their
Mm.
second confirmation loop.
Mm.
They say, turn left at the supermarket. Got it. They've completely swapped out the traffic lights for the supermarket in their mental model.
It's a universal human tendency. When we're navigating a new place, we latch onto things that are visually specific and memorable. Supermarket is just easier for the brain to grab onto and recall than traffic lights, which might look the same at every single corner.
The local person intuitively understood that and gave the tourist the kind of information their brain prefers.
It's brilliant.
So, okay, they've made the left turn successfully, they're on the new street, and the directions continue. After that, walk past the bank. This introduces a new kind of landmark, doesn't it?
It does, a sequential one. This is a really important distinction in spatial language. You
Yeah.
have to separate the landmarks you do something at, like turn from the landmarks you just moved past.
The bank isn't the destination, it's more like a checkpoint, a progress bar.
That's a great way to put it. It's a sequential checkpoint.
Mhm.
Walking past the bank reassures the tourist, yep, I'm still on the right path. I haven't gone too far yet.
If the local person hadn't mentioned the bank, the tourist might get halfway down the block and start to worry. Did I miss it? Where's the library?
The bank serves as that little interim anchor. It manages their uncertainty during that final leg of the trip.
And now, finally, we get to the destination. And the local person uses their full vocabulary of spatial language to give the final pinpoint location.
They deliver the final fix using the environment around the destination. The library is right next to the bank, across from the park.
This is the highest density of relational information in the whole exchange.
It's peak relational mapping. They're not just describing the library itself, they're describing its relationship to two other huge, unmissable anchors.
Okay, let's break down that language. First, the language of proximity, right next to.
Right next to is the strongest possible word for adjacency. It means they're touching, or almost touching. Maybe they even share a wall.
And in terms of cognitive mapping, what does that do?
It dramatically shrinks the search area. The tourist walks past the bank, and they know the library is immediately there, on the same side of the street. It's not 50 feet down the block. It's right there.
And then the second relational phrase, the language of opposition, across from.
Across from defines the visual relationship over a space, usually a street. The library is facing another huge landmark, the park. And using a park as that opposing reference is so smart
Why a park specifically?
because parks are big, they're permanent, and they're visually distinct from the buildings around them. They're these large green anchors in the middle of all the concrete and glass.
So that's the triangulation you mentioned.
That's it. If the tourist sees the bank on their left and the park on their right, and there's a big building sitting right there, that has to be the library. The location has been confirmed from 3 different angles.
The brain builds this incredibly stable mental picture by processing proximity next to and opposition across from at the same time. The instructions are almost foolproof because they're based entirely on what the tourist can physically see.
And the tourist's final summary proves it worked.
Mm.
Next to the bank across from the park.
They've got it. They've internalized the map. The entire structure of the communication from that first, all the way to this final triangulation has just been flawless.
It's a beautiful piece of efficient communication. Every single word was strategic. Every phrase was designed to maximize clarity and minimize anxiety.
What really strikes me is the layering, the redundancy. It wasn't just one instruction. It was go straight, then turn at the traffic lights, but also the big supermarket, then walk past the bank, and finally next to the bank across from the park.
That redundancy is the safety margin.
Say more about that.
Well, when you're stressed, you forget things. It's just human nature. But with this layered approach, if you forget traffic lights, your brain still has supermarket.
Right.
If you get turned around after the corner, you still have bank to look for.
Mm.
If you get to the end and you can't see the library sign, you can still find it by triangulating between the bank and the park. It's brilliant.
We've just spent a good chunk of time breaking down how this one little conversation is basically a masterclass in social skills and navigation theory. So let's take a second and just review the essential phrases, the core toolkit. #outro.
So if we boil it all down, we can really pull out 4 essential verbal commands that make these directions work so well.
Okay. The first one for just maintaining your trajectory is go straight.
The command for linear movement. It sets the initial path and prevents any early distractions or doubts.
The second for a decisive change in course is turn left.
An absolute, unambiguous instruction for changing your direction, always tied to a solid, reliable anchor point.
The third for moving along that new path is walk past.
Right. That's how you use a landmark as a checkpoint, not a turning point. It keeps you moving forward with confidence.
And finally, the fourth for pinpointing the final location is across from.
That's the key relational language. It lets you log the destination in place by using its visual relationship to another major landmark, which completes that triangulation we talked about.
And the whole thing is wrapped up so nicely with the social closure at the end. The tourist says, "Thank you so much."
And the local person gives that wonderful warm, "You are welcome. Have a nice day."
That positive ending just solidifies the whole interaction, doesn't it? The problem was solved, the anxiety was relieved, and the kindness was acknowledged and returned. It's a good reminder that asking for help is as much about social grace as it is about getting the right information.
And, our whole deep dive today has been based on one critical fact. The local person gave directions using big, visible landmarks. The supermarket, the bank, the park.
They almost completely avoided using abstract information like street names.
Right. Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. And it builds directly on everything we just analyzed.
What if that local person had done things differently? What if they had relied only on street names?
Imagine if the directions had been, turn left onto Elm Street and the library is on Willow Avenue.
How much harder, how much more stressful would that journey have been for our tourist, who, remember, has no map, no phone, and is running purely on short-term memory while being anxious?
It really makes you think about the difference between abstract knowledge and observable reality, doesn't it?
It does. Street names are an abstraction. You need to already have a mental map of the city grid for them to mean anything.
But landmarks bypass all of that. They rely on things anyone can see. The big supermarket is a universal concept. It transcends language. It transcends cartography.
It makes it the most powerful and reliable navigation tool you have when that phone battery finally hits zero.
A fantastic deep dive into the architecture of communication under pressure.
Something to think about the next time you're the one who's lost, or maybe the one who's being asked to help.
Until next time, stay curious and make sure your directions are always anchored to something big and easy to see.
We'll see you for the next deep dive.